The snow fell gently across the silent alien forest. Thick white flakes landed on the trees, the ground, and the single orange-colored tent in the middle of it all. Inside that tent, a young human man named Liam sat near a small heater. He wore a heavy coat and held a mug of warm liquid, trying to stay awake. Liam had crash-landed on this frozen planet 3 days ago. His ship was destroyed. His radio was broken, and he didn't know if anyone would come to rescue him. He had food rations for a few more days, but after that, he wasn't sure. He had set up camp, trying to survive. But loneliness was already crawling into his heart. That's when she appeared. It happened the morning of the 4th day. Liam had stepped outside to check the solar battery when he noticed small footprints in the snow bare feet. He looked around quickly but saw no one. Then suddenly, a snowball hit the back of his head. What the? He turned around, and there she was, a tiny girl, no taller than his chest, standing by the edge of the trees. Her skin was pale and glowing slightly, her eyes large and dark with long lashes. She had long black hair that reached her knees, and 2 large, cat-like ears sticking out from her head. Her dress was torn, her legs bare in the cold. But she didn't seem afraid. She just smiled and stuck out her tongue at him. "Hey, what are you doing out here?" Liam called out. The girl didn't answer. Instead, she picked up another snowball and threw it. This time it hit him straight in the chest. She giggled and ran back into the trees before he could say anything more. Liam was stunned. He hadn't seen another living soul on this planet, especially not an alien child. And what kind of child would play in the freezing snow with no shoes or jacket? He went back inside, confused, and spent the rest of the day thinking about her. Was she real? Or just his mind playing tricks? But the next day, she returned. She didn't speak, just teased him again. She stole one of his gloves when he wasn't looking. And when he chased her, she dropped it into a snowbank. She poked his face when he was sleeping, then ran away laughing. She even sat right outside his tent for an hour, just staring at him with that same playful smile. Liam tried to ask her questions, but she never replied. She didn't seem to know human language, or maybe she just didn't want to speak. Still, she wasn't dangerous, just strange and oddly charming. As the sun went down, Liam found himself actually smiling for the first time in days. Her presence, though chaotic, made him feel less alone. He even left out some food for her before he went to sleep. The next morning, the food was gone, and in its place was a small snow sculpture of a cat. Liam chuckled. "So you can make art too, huh?" That day, the girl came even closer. She sat near his fire, stretched out her small fingers toward the warmth. Liam handed her a piece of bread, and she took it with both hands. Still, she didn't speak not a single word, but her big eyes were always watching him, like she was studying his every move. And then, just as quickly as she arrived, she would disappear into the woods again. Every time he tried to follow her, she vanished like smoke. She was fast, quiet, and almost ghost-like in her movements. But Liam started to notice something else. Underneath her laughter and games, there was something sad. She never smiled with her eyes, only her mouth. And when she thought he wasn't looking, her expression would drop tired, distant, almost scared. That night, Liam stared into the fire, thinking deeply. Who was she? Why was she always alone? And why did she never speak? His instincts told him something wasn't right. This wasn't just a mischievous alien child playing in the snow. There was a story behind those eyes, a secret behind the teasing, and he was going to find out what it was. But he didn't know yet that before the week was over, that same girl would cry softly in his arms at midnight, and in that moment, everything would change. Asterisk. The next morning, the snow had stopped falling. The forest looked peaceful, with everything covered in white. Liam stepped out of his tent, wrapped in his thick coat, and looked around. He didn't know if the strange alien girl would return again, but part of him hoped she would. He had left out a piece of fruit and a warm scarf. It was his way of saying, "Welcome back," without using words. Then he sat by the small campfire and waited, drinking from his steaming cup. Minutes passed, then an hour, just as Liam was about to give up. He heard a soft crunch behind him. He turned and there she was. The tiny alien girl stood near the trees, holding the scarf in her hands. She wasn't smiling this time, not teasing him like before. Instead, she looked curious, careful, as if deciding whether to step closer or run away. Liam smiled gently and waved. "Morning," he said softly. "You came back." She tilted her head, ears twitching, then slowly walked over and sat beside the fire. Still no words, but she pulled the scarf tightly around her shoulders, hugging it like a blanket. For a while, they sat in silence. The only sound was the crackling fire and the soft wind through the trees. Then suddenly, she stood up, picked up a stick, and drew a circle in the snow. She pointed at Liam, then at the circle. He raised an eyebrow. "You want me to come in the circle?" She nodded quickly, eyes wide with excitement, ears perked. Liam laughed, stood up, and walked into the circle. As soon as he stepped inside, she clapped her hands and ran around him in a circle like a spinning snowflake. Then she started throwing soft snow at his boots. Giggling like a child, Liam understood. This was her game, so he played along. He chased her. She ran. He pretended to fall, and she burst into giggles. They built a snow alien together, gave it big ears and silly eyes made of rocks. She even placed a little stick in its mouth like a pipe. When she laughed, it was full and bright. But Liam noticed. When she thought he wasn't looking, she still glanced over her shoulder, as if watching the woods for someone or something. It was like she was running from something invisible. Even when she played, she never fully relaxed. After the game, they sat on a log, breathing heavily from all the running. Liam handed her a piece of dried meat. She sniffed it, then bit into it slowly, cautiously. She seemed surprised it wasn't poisoned. "Don't worry," Liam said gently. "I won't hurt you." She looked at him, and for the first time, she smiled softly, not teasing, but grateful. Still, she didn't say anything. No name, no language, just silence. But there was a connection forming, something quiet and powerful. Even without words, she seemed to understand him, and he was starting to understand her too. As the sun began to set, Liam tried to ask, "Where do you go at night?" He pointed to the forest, then made a sleeping gesture. "Do you sleep there? Is it safe?" She didn't answer, but her ears lowered slightly, and she looked away. Liam didn't push. He just said, "You can stay here, if you want, by the fire." She looked at him again, then shook her head gently and stood up. She made a small snowball and handed it to him. Then she turned around and walked into the trees. The snowball slowly melted in his hand. He didn't understand what it meant. Was it a gift? A goodbye? A warning? That night, Liam sat alone by the fire, the scarf she took now resting in her absence. He looked at the stars and whispered, "Who are you really?" He couldn't sleep properly. His mind was filled with images, her silent eyes, her bare feet in the snow, her sudden laughter, her sudden fear. The next day, she returned again, this time holding something in her hand. It was a small round object, shiny and glowing like a stone from another world. She placed it in his hand, closed his fingers around it, and looked at him seriously. Then she pointed to her chest, then his chest, then made a gesture like a circle in the air. Liam stared at her, confused but moved. Was she saying they were connected? Bound in some way? Before he could ask, she ran off again. Later, while sitting by the fire, Liam examined the glowing stone. It pulsed gently with warmth like a heartbeat. It wasn't just a gift. It was something important. That night, he whispered to himself, "She's not just a girl who teases and plays. She's hiding something, and I need to find out what before it's too late." The games in the snow were only the beginning. The truth was much colder than the snow around him. The sun was low behind the trees, casting long shadows over the snow-covered ground. Liam sat near the fire again. 2 bowls placed beside him, one for himself and one for her. He had begun to make it a habit now. Every evening he prepared a small meal and waited for the strange alien girl to arrive. She had become a part of his days, her teasing, her quiet glances, the little games they played. Even without words, she had brought warmth to this cold and lonely world. But tonight, she didn't come. The forest was still, too still. The snowflakes fell like soft whispers, but the air felt heavy. Liam kept glancing toward the trees, expecting her to jump out or throw a snowball at him. But nothing happened. He waited longer, shifting from side to side, then stood up and called softly, "Hey, are you there?" His voice disappeared into the cold air. No reply, no footsteps, no glowing eyes from the shadows. The food in her bowl slowly froze over, untouched. His heart tightened. Maybe she was late, he told himself. Maybe she was hiding again, trying a new trick, but deep inside, something felt off. That night, he didn't sleep well. He kept waking up to check outside, staring into the darkness. Every little noise made him jump. The tent flap moved once in the wind, and he rushed outside, only to find snow. Just snow, and silence. Morning came. Gray and cold, still no sign of her. Liam grabbed his coat, packed some food, and left the tent. He followed the trail she usually took, the same curved line through the trees where her small feet left prints. But the fresh snow had covered everything. Then he saw it, near a fallen log. A strange mark in the snow. Something had been dragged or pulled across the ground. His heartbeat quickened. He followed the trail, his boots crunching through the frozen forest. It wasn't far, just beyond a ridge, where he found it. A broken trap. It looked like a net made of metal, alien in design. Half buried in the snow, twisted and sharp, like it had snapped under pressure. And near it, a torn piece of soft brown fabric. Liam's breath caught in his chest. It was part of her dress. He knelt down and picked it up with shaking hands. There were small drops of something dark on the snow nearby. Blood? His stomach twisted. Leva? He whispered her name for the first time, hoping somehow she'd hear him. Only silence answered. He searched around, looking for more tracks, more signs, anything. But the trail ended there. No footsteps leading away, no sign of where she might have gone. It was like she had vanished. That night, back at the camp, Liam sat in front of the fire holding the cloth in his hand. He didn't eat, didn't sleep, just stared at the flames, thinking about her soft eyes and small smile. How could someone so lively, so full of quiet mischief, disappear like that? Then a question crept into his mind. Was someone else out there? The trap wasn't natural. She didn't set it herself. Someone, or something, was hunting her. Suddenly, all the teasing made sense. The way she never spoke, the way she always watched the trees, the scars on her wrist. She had been running the whole time, hiding, afraid but still smiling just to survive, and now she was gone. Liam felt anger rise inside him, not just fear, but fury. Whoever tried to take her might still be out there, and if she was hurt or captured, he couldn't just sit here and do nothing. He stood up, grabbed his bag, and packed supplies. He made a torch from a stick and some cloth. He didn't care how cold it was. He was going back out there. But just before he could leave the tent, he froze. There was a noise outside, a faint crunch in the snow, slow, shaky. He held his breath, reaching for the flashlight, and opened the tent flap slowly, and there she was. Leva stood just a few steps away, her small body shaking. Snow stuck to her dress and hair. Her eyes were wide and full of pain, her lips trembling. Her left leg was bleeding, and she was barely able to stand. One arm clutched her side tightly, and her scarf was missing. Leva! Liam dropped everything and rushed to her side. She collapsed into his arms, too weak to speak. He carried her inside and wrapped her in blankets, hands moving fast, trying to stop the bleeding. "Who did this to you?" he asked, voice low, burning with emotion. She didn't answer. Her eyes slowly closed, but not in sleep. Tears rolled down her cheeks, quiet and helpless. She wasn't teasing anymore. She wasn't playing games. She was hurt, afraid, and, for the first time, truly vulnerable. As Liam held her close, he whispered softly, "I'm not going to let them take you. Whoever did this. I'll stop them. You're safe now." But in his heart, he knew this was just the beginning. Whatever had found her out there might come for her again, and next time. They might not leave her alive. Inside the warm glow of the tent, everything was quiet. The little alien girl lay curled in a thick blanket, her breathing slow, her body still. Liam sat beside her, gently, dabbing a warm cloth on the wound on her leg. She didn't open her eyes, but he could tell she was awake, just too weak to move. Her skin was cold when he found her, nearly frozen. She must have been out there for hours, alone, bleeding, walking through the snow just to reach him, and somehow she had made it back. She had chosen to return to him, not the woods, not anywhere else, but him. Liam wrapped her leg tightly and placed a hot water pouch near her side. He didn't speak for a long time. Words felt too heavy, too useless, so he just sat there, watching her, listening to the soft rise and fall of her chest. A few hours passed. The wind howled outside the tent, but inside, it was safe, quiet, almost peaceful. Then finally, her eyes opened, just slightly, dark and shining, full of pain but also trust. "You're okay now," Liam whispered. "You made it back." Her lips parted, but no sound came. Then she reached out weakly and touched the scarf he had given her earlier, the one he had found torn. She grabbed it like a memory, like it meant more to her than he would ever understand. "Leva," he said softly. "That's your name, isn't it?" She blinked once, slowly yes. Liam took a deep breath. "I don't know who hurt you," he said, "but I want to help. You don't have to be afraid anymore." He didn't expect her to speak, but after a long pause, she whispered something barely a sound, "Not safe." Liam's heart skipped a beat. He leaned closer. "What did you say?" "Not safe. They still coming." Her voice was hoarse, dry, like she hadn't used it in years. But the fear in her tone was clear. Who were they? What had they done to her? Liam didn't ask too many questions. She was still weak, still healing. Instead, he sat down beside her and began to share his own story, hoping to make her feel less alone. "I was just flying over this planet on a scout mission," he said quietly. "My ship got hit by a strange signal, crashed here. No one knows I'm alive. Not yet anyway. I was scared too. Until you showed up." She turned her head slightly, just enough to look at him. "No scared," she whispered. "You smile." Liam gave a small, sad laugh. "I smiled because of you." Leva closed her eyes again. But this time she didn't fall asleep. She was listening, thinking, remembering something. Then she pulled her hand from under the blanket and held it up. Her small palm had old scars deep, ugly ones that looked like chains had once wrapped around them tightly. Liam stared. In silence, she didn't need to say anything. The marks told their own story. She had been captured, maybe even enslaved, used, mistreated. Maybe by her own kind. "You were hurt before you met me," Liam said, his voice full of sadness. "Is that why you laughed all the time, played jokes to hide it?" She blinked again slowly. Games made them stop. Forget, for little time. That broke something in Liam. This girl wasn't just an alien, wasn't just strange or mischievous. She was a survivor. She had smiled to cover pain, teased to hide trauma. And now when she couldn't pretend anymore, she had no one except him. "Leva," Liam said gently, "you're not alone now. No more hiding, no more hurting." "I promise." She didn't reply, but her fingers curled around his sleeve and didn't let go. That was enough that night. Liam made sure she stayed warm and fed. He kept the heater on, boiled extra water, and gave her a new scarf to replace the torn one. She wore it around her neck and didn't take it off. Before sleeping, Liam sat outside the tent with a small weapon in hand. He looked into the forest, dark, cold, silent, but no longer innocent. Somewhere out there, someone had hurt her, and they could come again. But if they did, they would have to get through him, because now she wasn't just a guest at his fire. She was his responsibility, his friend, maybe more, and he wasn't going to lose her, not to the cold, and not to the monsters that haunted her past. As the fire crackled softly and the stars twinkled above, Leva's voice came again from inside the tent, soft, trembling, but full of something new hope. "You stay?" she whispered. Liam smiled, eyes wet with emotion. "Always," he said. This time, there was no teasing, only truth. Midnight came quietly. The snow outside had stopped, but the sky was full of stars shining like tiny fires above the cold forest. Inside the tent, the warmth from the heater glowed softly, making the space feel like a small, safe world. Leva lay on her side, wrapped in the thick blanket, her injured leg resting on a folded coat. Liam sat near her, watching the flames flicker inside the small stove. She hadn't said much since the last time she whispered stay, but Liam could feel something building, like she wanted to speak, to finally say what was stuck inside her heart for so long. He didn't rush her. He simply waited, offering her the silence she needed. Outside, wolves howled in the distance low, echoing sounds that reminded them both of the danger beyond these canvas walls. But neither of them flinched. This tent had become more than a shelter. It had become a place of trust, of healing. Leva slowly turned her head and looked at Liam. Her big dark eyes reflected the light, full of emotion she couldn't hide anymore. "Liam," she said softly, his name sounding strange but beautiful from her lips. He turned quickly, surprised. "That's the first time you said my name." He smiled gently. "It sounds nice." She nodded slowly, her hands gripping the blanket. Then she took a shaky breath, her lips trembling as she began to speak. "My planet, not like yours," she whispered. "Cold, cruel, people don't care. Only power matters." Liam listened, his chest tight as her voice continued. "Broken and slow but clear. They take small ones like me for testing," she said, her voice shaking. "Change our bodies to feel no pain, to become weapons." Her fingers touched the scars on her wrist again. "We become useful, or we disappear." Liam's heart dropped. He had guessed parts of her past, but hearing it from her lips made it real, too real. "I escaped," she continued. "Ran away from the lab. Lived in the snow, hid from the watchers. Then I saw you crash. At first, I wanted your food," she smiled sadly. "But you didn't chase me. You smiled." Liam looked at her, shocked and moved. "All that time, you were just trying to survive?" She nodded, her eyes filling with tears. "But I didn't want to be weak," she said, her voice rising slightly. "So I joked, teased, laughed, pretended." A single tear rolled down her cheek. "But then you gave me food and scarf and let me sit near fire. And I didn't feel like a monster anymore." She paused, then added in a whisper, "I felt like a person." Liam leaned closer, his eyes soft. "You were always a person, Leva. You just never had anyone to tell you that." More tears spilled from her eyes, and this time she didn't wipe them. She let them fall, her breathing becoming heavy, her shoulders trembling. And then, just like the title of the story promised, she cried softly in his arms at midnight. Liam didn't say a word. He simply reached out and pulled her into a gentle embrace, holding her like something precious. Her small hands gripped his shirt tightly, burying her face against his chest. The heat from her tears soaked through the fabric, but he didn't move. He let her cry because this wasn't weakness. This was release. She had carried too much pain for too long. Tonight, she was finally letting it go. "I thought you would leave," she whispered between sobs. "Thought humans hate creatures like me." Liam pulled back just enough to look into her eyes. "I'm not leaving," he said firmly. "And you're not a creature." She blinked through tears, searching his face. "Then, what am I?" "You're Leva," he replied. A brave, strong girl who made me smile even when I was lost. You saved me too. Leva stared at him, her lips trembling, but this time, with a soft smile trying to break through. It wasn't the teasing smile from before. It was real, honest, and pure. You think I saved you? She asked, almost in disbelief. Yes, he nodded. I was alone, ready to give up. Then you showed up with your games and weird snowcats. I thought you were annoying at first, he chuckled, but now, I wouldn't want to survive here without you. They sat together for a while, not talking, just breathing, feeling the weight of silence finally lifted. The stars above continued to shine, but inside the tent, something brighter had awakened. Trust, connection, hope, finally. Leva lay back down. Wiping her tears with her sleeve, she looked peaceful, like she could finally sleep without fear chasing her through her dreams. As her eyes slowly closed, she whispered one last word. Thank you. Liam smiled and sat beside her until her breathing steadied. Then he turned off the light, pulled the blanket over her gently, and whispered back, You're welcome. Leva, and outside, the snow began to fall again. But this time, it didn't feel so cold anymore. The morning after Leva cried in his arms. The snow had grown deeper, but inside the tent, something had changed. Liam woke early, rubbed his eyes, and turned to see Leva still sleeping peacefully. Her face, once full of worry, now looked calm. She was curled under the blanket, holding the scarf he had given her close to her chest. He smiled to himself, but that smile didn't last long. There was still danger out there. Whoever had set that trap in the woods might come again. They knew Leva was still alive, and they were likely hunting her even now. Liam quietly stepped outside, zipped up his coat, and looked around the frozen forest. Everything looked peaceful, but he didn't trust it. He needed to make a plan. The first thing he did was check his old distress beacon. It had been damaged in the crash, but he had repaired parts of it using scrap from the ship. Now with a few tweaks, he might be able to send a signal into orbit if anyone was close enough to hear it. He sat beside the broken device and worked for hours, rewiring circuits, adjusting antennae. Finally, just before sunset, the screen blinked green signal ready. Liam didn't waste time. He pressed the button and sent out the call. This is Scout Officer Liam Halden, stranded on Sector Theta 9. Crashed ship, one survivor with me. Requesting emergency pickup. Repeat, emergency pickup. The message repeated in a loop every 15 minutes. Now all he could do was hope someone heard it, and hope they came before Leva's enemies did. That evening, he returned to the tent. Leva was awake now, sitting up slowly, her cheeks flushed from warmth, her eyes more alive than before. You okay? He asked gently. She nodded. Leg hurts, but better. She pointed to the door. You went out? Just preparing, Liam said with a small smile. I think help is on the way. She looked confused, and he explained slowly. I sent a signal. A rescue ship might come soon. We can leave this planet together. Leva's eyes widened. Leave? Together? Liam nodded. You're not staying here, not alone. Not ever again. She was quiet for a moment, then whispered, They will come for me before your people do. They track survivors. Unfinished experiments that hit him hard. So she was one of their test subjects, and to them, she wasn't a person, just a mistake to clean up. I won't let them touch you, Liam said, voice firm. You hear me, Leva? I'll protect you. Leva's ears twitched, and she stared at him like she couldn't believe anyone would say those words for her. Later that night, Liam got to work. He sharpened old metal rods from the wreckage and placed them in the snow around the tent, forming a kind of trap line. He set up a motion sensor he salvaged from his escape pod, and even prepared a flare one last signal in case the rescue ship came close. Inside the tent, Leva watched him work. She didn't speak, but her eyes followed every move, worried. Maybe even scared, not scared of the enemy, but scared for him. When he came back in, Cold and tired, she spoke quietly. "You fight for me?" "Yes," Liam said simply. She looked down at her hands, whispering. "No one ever did that before." "Well," he said as he sat beside her, "then it's about time someone did." They shared food again, that night simple dry rations. But eaten together, it felt like a feast. Leva sat closer now, no longer afraid to lean against him. Her voice was stronger, and for the first time, she even laughed softly at one of his bad jokes. But then just as the clock ticked past midnight, the sensor outside beeped once. Liam froze. He turned to the screen. It showed movement near the tree line, just one shape. Maybe two. His heart pounded in his chest. "They're here," he whispered. Leva sat up, fear returning to her face. Liam handed her a small blade he had made, just in case. "Stay inside. Don't open the tent. No matter what happens, I'll handle it." She grabbed his hand tightly. "No," she said. "You can't fight them alone." He smiled, placing his other hand on hers. "I'm not alone anymore." He stepped outside, the cold biting into his skin. The forest was dark, but the moonlight revealed shadows moving in the distance. He raised the flare gun and fired it high into the sky. A blazing red light shot upward, painting the trees with color. Then he raised the old blaster from the wreckage and waited. The snow crunched under boots, alien boots. Figures in black suits emerged, tall, faceless, scanning the area with glowing helmets. They didn't speak, just moved forward like shadows with weapons. Liam took a deep breath, ready for the fight. He had no superpower, no special weapon, just courage. And the promise he made to a tiny alien girl, the promise to protect her with everything he had. Red light from the flare still hung in the sky, glowing like a blood moon. Liam stood at the edge of the tent's clearing, gripping the blaster tightly. The black-suited figures were closer now, 3 of them, tall, cold, and silent. They didn't speak because they didn't need to. They weren't here to talk. They were here to erase a mistake. Leva, behind him, inside the tent. Leva clutched the scarf Liam had given her. She knew those figures. She had seen them before in her nightmares. And now they were real again. Liam raised the blaster, took a deep breath, and shouted, "She's not going with you." The lead figure paused for a moment, then took a step forward. In his hand, he held a glowing weapon, sleek and dangerous. He raised it at Liam, silently giving him one last chance to move aside. But Liam didn't move. Instead, he fired first. The shot hit the figure in the shoulder, knocking him backward into the snow. The other 2 rushed forward quickly, weapons ready. Liam ducked behind a snow-covered rock and fired again. He wasn't a trained soldier, just a scout, but his aim was good enough to make them hesitate. Inside the tent, Leva heard everything: blasts, footsteps, Liam's voice shouting in anger and pain. She wanted to run, but her leg was still weak. Still, she pushed herself up, grabbed a short metal rod, and crawled toward the flap of the tent. Outside, Liam was struggling now. One of the attackers had circled around and hit him across the back. He fell into the snow, the blaster knocked from his hands. The cold bit into his skin, and he could barely lift himself up. The tallest figure stood above him, weapon pointed at his chest. "You are protecting a failed asset," the voice buzzed coldly through a translator. "She is not yours." Liam, breathing hard, looked up and said, "She's not an asset, she's Leva, and she's worth more than all of you." Just as the figure moved to fire, crack, a metal rod struck his helmet from behind. The figure stumbled forward and collapsed onto the ground. Leva stood there, weak and shaking, her leg bleeding again, but her eyes fierce. "She is mine," she said quietly. "My life is mine." Liam grabbed her before she collapsed and pulled her into his arms. The last attacker hesitated, seeing her awake, standing, fighting. He looked at both of them, then slowly backed away into the trees, disappearing without a sound. It was over. For now, Liam and Leva sat in the snow, hearts racing, bodies cold, but alive. He hugged her tightly, her small body trembling against his. "You didn't have to do that," he whispered. "Yes," she replied. "I did." Suddenly, A light appeared in the sky. A deep hum echoed through the air. And both of them looked up. A rescue ship was descending, its large lights scanning the ground. The signal had worked. Help had finally come. The ship landed nearby with a soft thud, and 2 human medics rushed out. "Scout Liam Halden?" One shouted, "Are you alive?" Liam raised his hand weakly. "Yeah. And I'm not alone." They carried both Liam and Leva into the ship. Wrapping them in warm blankets, Liam had bruises, Leva had reopened wounds, but they were going to be okay. Inside the ship, Leva stayed close to him, unsure of these new humans. One of the officers frowned and whispered, "She's not human." "What is she?" Liam looked at them calmly and said, "She's my friend. She comes with me." There was silence. Then the captain of the rescue ship nodded. "All right, then she's under your protection." Leva looked up at him, eyes wide with disbelief. "You mean it?" She whispered, "I meant it the day you cried in my arms." He replied with a soft smile, "You're not going back to anyone else. You're with me now." The ship lifted off, rising above the cold forest that once held so much pain. As the stars returned to view, Leva leaned her head on Liam's shoulder. For the first time in her life, she felt what she had never felt. Before safe, she didn't need to tease anymore. Didn't need to pretend, or hide, or smile just to survive. She had someone who saw her. Someone who chose her, not as a test subject, not as a creature, not as a mistake, but as Leva, the girl with big eyes, snow-covered feet, and a heart that still dared to hope. As she closed her eyes, Liam held her close and whispered, "You're safe in my arms now, and this time." She believed it.